Thanks for coming, Stephen. Thank you for your time. I suppose the first question I must ask you is how do you see the Australian Open sitting in the landscape of golf in Australia at this time?
Look, Kathy, I think we're delighted with how the event's progressed in the last 5 or 6 years. I think if you look at the last 3 years, I think we've had probably two of the greatest Australian Opens ever. Last year, I guess people that have been around a lot longer than I have say it was perhaps the best one that they'd seen. To have, I guess, that field and Rory and Adam going at it head-to-head on the final day, and Rory just eclipsing Adam and winning for the first time in about 12 months was just an extraordinary event. And if you go back to 2011, you know, we had, in my view, the deepest and strongest Australian Open field that we'd ever had. You know, when you've got Tiger there and about 13 President Cup players, it was an extraordinary field. The Emirates Australian Open is a critical event for us because we see it playing an enormous role for Australian golf, that it's a flagship event, that it's there, I guess, to help raise the profile of the game, and we've certainly seen that in the last 12 months. I think Adam's, if you want to call it, victory lap around the country, coming back after being the Masters champion, the amount of profile that the sport got through the events, and particularly the Australian Open, you know, we were front and back page, leading news bulletins. It was just an extraordinary, I think, occurrence for golf, and we've seen on the back of that some really strong trends in terms of participation. Rounds are up, membership is getting in a healthier position. So a lot of that comes down to the profile of the game, and I think the Australian Open plays an enormous role in that.
It's very exciting that Emirates have signed for another 3 years as your major sponsors.
Yeah, look, Emirates are an absolutely incredible sponsor. We're so fortunate to have them on board. They're a blue chip partner, and I think they just add extraordinary excitement to the tournament. And I guess added to that, the other big news is we've renewed our agreement with World Sport Group for a further 5 years. So we've been with World Sport Group for 5 years. We've agreed to continue that through until 2019, and they've been a great commercial partner for us. We couldn't have asked for anything more from them, and I think they've played a great role in getting the tournament, you know, where we want it to be.
It certainly looks very solid. I'll just open for questions from the floor. Any questions? Peter?
Steve, was there any consideration given to bringing Jack back out here this year for the first tournament on his new course?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, Peter, and yes, there was some consideration given to it. When we first sat down with the Australian Golf Club, we talked a lot about Jack and when he might be coming back. The hope was we could coincide it with his visit. So perhaps that will happen in the future. It wasn't possible this year, but it's something that we would love to see. Jack's very passionate about the Australian Golf Club, and he's also very passionate about the Australian Open. Got the chance to chat to him over in the US last year, and he remembers his victories really well. His eyes lit up when we told him we were from Golf Australia, and we talked at length about the Australian Open. So it's something that carries a lot of fond memories for him.
There was nothing left in the bin for him after you'd paid Rory and Adam?
Well, I think it was more a timing issue because, as you'll know, Jack was out here last year for the course. It was probably difficult to get him back twice in such a close time period. But look, potentially into the future, it would be a great marriage, I think, and I'm sure it's something that Jack would be really open to.
Is there an option here for next year?
There is an option here for next year, yes. So I guess we're getting through the tournament, and then we'll make a decision on venue with the Australian Golf Club after the tournament.
Right.
Any more questions, please? Lucy?
Yeah. How valuable is it having the Australian Open here at the Australian Golf Club?
The Australian Golf Club's, it's an iconic club in Australia, and it's a great tournament venue. We were actually talking just before, and the last 2 weeks, probably the two courses in the country that come up as good as anyone or any course is the Australian and Metropolitan. And for golfers to go back to back from Metropolitan to the Australian Golf Club's a real treat. And I guess there are some players that probably will have played at Lake Karrinyup too, which is another iconic tournament venue. So the Australian Golf Club, I think with its history, it's hosted so many championships, it's it's so ingrained with the tournament. So it's really important, and I think this week the venue will come up really, really well. There's a lot of players that love the course as a tournament venue. I think the changes will test them, and particularly if we get some pretty tricky wind conditions, which it seems like we're going to.
Mark?
Stephen, there's been some fantastic results for the amateurs lately. Pretty good result for the national squad, isn't it, for the Golf Australia national squad?
Yeah, it's something we're enormously proud of. If you look at what's happened, I think with our high performance program over the last 5 years, and there's obviously a lot of credit goes to our staff and also the national coaches around the country who've done such a great job. But we saw it last week at Metropolitan Golf Club at the Masters with Lucas Herbert's performance to play so well in I think the second last group. Ryan Ruffles was up there. Todd Sinnott, played extremely well. So we've got a great young crop of players coming through. In terms of the girls, we've had 2 girls come through our high performance program in Minjee Lee and Sue O, who will go to final stage of qualifying for the LPGA next year. And they are just, in our view, a great example of what we're trying to produce from our golfers. They've both got really glittering careers ahead of them. So I think we've been really fortunate in terms of what we've been able to do. I guess a key outcome of the program is we're trying to produce players that can make a quick transition into professional life and perform straight away, and then go on ultimately to win majors, Olympic medals, become world top 10s. That's really what we're trying to do. So it's really encouraging to see players, for example, like a Cameron Smith, who graduated from our program. He's very early into his pro career, but he's already demonstrating that he's got the goods to make it on the US tour.
Oh, Stephen, while Rory McIlroy's here this week, does Golf Australia and World Sports Group talk to him about coming back next year or beyond that? Do those discussions take place, or do you just try and give him a good time and hope he wins?
Certainly try to give him a good experience at the tournament. But having said that, I think not long after the final putt dropped last year, we had already started talking to him about coming back, and it was something that he was open to. I think he really loves Australia and Sydney, but B, he really enjoyed his time in the tournament. If you listen to Rory and what he's said in recent times, I think his win last year really got him going. He'd had basically a winless year, and I think his performance here just was what he needed to get some wind under his sails and get going. So I think he's got very fond memories. We'd love to see him as a regular fixture. I guess last year was Rory v Adam round 1. This is Rory v Adam round 2. The thriller in Manila, or the rumble in the jungle, or whatever you want to call it. But we've got the 2 heavyweights of world golf going at it again. So it's enormously exciting. So look, if we can get what we had last year, I think we'd be enormously pleased.
Oh,
sorry, Stephen, just one more. You spoke about the development of the young guys coming through Australian golf. You can obviously invest what you can invest, but how important is it that these superstars like Rory McIlroy and Adam Scott, when they come down, they give time, freely give their time, and they have Rory McIlroy's having run through with Ryan Ruffles, just that sort of indefinable mentorship.
It means an enormous amount of players, without a doubt. Antonio Medaka, who won the Asia Pacific Amateur a few weeks ago, one of the first people to get in touch with him was Greg Norman, saying, let's go and play Augusta together. So for those young players coming through, it makes an enormous difference. It just also, I think, helps them feel like they belong in that company. And our players have been so good. I mean, Adam Scott, Jason Day, for example, helped Oliver Goss last year at Augusta National. They just take the young players under their wing. So it's absolutely critical. It's a really positive culture to have within your sport, so it's something that we're proud of and trying to continue to build.